Hello to everyone who is joining us. We will start our session in a couple of minutes. And I want to use this minute that we have just to do a quick sound check and learn a bit about you guys who's joining us, where from. So if you are already in the session, please confirm in the chat that you can hear me clearly. Hopefully you are. You can see the slide and let us know where you're from. Hi, Paul. Good to see you. Long time. Good to see you. So we are quite a global audience, I see. So to the people who sometimes have automatically their note takers joining, I would highly advise that you disconnect the note takers because we issue certificates of attendance after the webinar, and we had the issue that people who join with their note takers, instead of having their name, because it's an automatic process, instead of your name, we have somebody's note taker in the title, and that's a shame. So please make sure that you connect without your note taker because of this reason. So good. Yeah, Richard. So I see your name, but if at the same time you have some note taker, I don't know, it might be some bug or something, but we had this experience. It's better to avoid the note takers because of this. Good. So I see a lot of Europe. I don't know, do we also have people from the US, North America? Do we have somebody? So we have Philippines, Asia. I would expect more also US joining us. Yeah, okay. So we have Alka from the US as well. We have Argentina. Excellent. Yeah, good, good. So I'm happy to see that we have people as well from the North America as well. Excellent. So thank you for joining us in your morning. So now that we are 2 minutes into the session, I believe that most of the people who wanted to join us already have. So I would like to start the intro, and I say hello and welcome to our today's webinar on the topic of GMP twins, making digital twins real in GxP manufacturing. I'm Jan Kogut, the Managing Director at Qualistry, and I will be your host for today. And for those who are new to our webinars, at Qualistry, we help professionals in regulated industries stay current with the latest trends through engaging webinars, practical resources, and we provide a stage to top industry experts to share real-world experience. And this session is planned for up to 90 minutes, and we will finish with the live Q&A. We also encourage you to ask questions during the session, as we will try to take some of your questions between the topics during the webinar. And you should know that the webinar has been recorded, and we will be sending the recording to the registrants, but it will take some time. You will get it from our event partner, ISO, in due time. And as I mentioned, we also distribute certificates of attendance to everyone who stays throughout the session, and you will get those emailed to you within 24 hours. And if not, please email us. We highly encourage you, as I mentioned, to ask questions, but please do it in the specified Q&A box at the bottom. Do not use the general chat for that, because we will then miss your question. So please, the questions in the Q&A. And now let's get to today's topic. So many conversations about digital twins in pharma focus on static models or near real time copies of systems, and sometimes called digital models or digital shadows. And today our speakers will explain what sets true digital twins apart. Dynamic, interoperable systems that reflect and anticipate real-time behavior across the production environments. And today they will cover a GMP-aligned framework for building compliant twins and how twins are reshaping continued process verification. And on this note, I'd like to thank our event partner, Azon. Azon pioneers intelligent GxP manufacturing. They help eliminate paper, boost yield, reduce deviations, and deliver AI-driven quality improvements in weeks instead of years. And now let's get to know our speakers. So first we have Kevin Baughman, the VP of Azon AI Consulting Services. Kevin leads delivery of value-based AI and cloud solutions, combining strategic visions with hands-on consulting across industries. He holds a degree in applied mathematics, economics, and MS in advanced analytics. And our second speaker today is Vitaliy Kogut, and he's an AI consultant and data scientist at Azon. Vitaliy implements digital twin technology and machine learning for manufacturing challenges. He's also pursuing right now a PhD in digital twins and brings a strong engineering and analytical expertise to the table to this webinar. So you have a lot to learn from them. And with that, let's get started. Kevin, the stage is yours. Happy learning.
All right, thank you very much. I am hopefully able to turn the slides here. There we go. All right. Well, I was supposed to be on this slide before, but this is us. This is me and Vitaliy. So very happy to be here. Today we will first start with an intro to digital twins. What does it really mean to have a digital twin? What does that encompass? And then actually building a GMP compliant digital twin because we are in a highly regulated industry, so the GMP aspect is of utmost importance. And then overcoming the barriers in pharma to actually get to a point where you can be able to have a digital twin and scale that out to your network. Then go into some real world case studies that Vitaliy will touch on. And then he will also talk about the research he's doing with his PhD. And then we'll go into a Q&A. All right. So I did want to share this. I think this is a very diverse audience today, and I think it's highly appropriate because you may think digital twins are just impacting, the process guys, the ones that are actually studying the process and they want to optimize some parameters. But it certainly has quality implications. It could change overall batch release times. There's applications from an R&D to tech transfer. Component. So there's a lot of different aspects to digital twins that will impact everyone on this list. So thank you all for being here and for giving us quite a bit of diversity today. All right. Well, before we really dive into it, we want to start with, first of all, have you already worked with digital twins or AI models before? It could be in your current role, it could be related to supply chain, it could be related to process optimization, leveraging raw material CQA values to predict something. I'm just curious to get your perspectives on this.
I can see in the chat, Kevin, that most of the people that says no. So
Yep.
here we have.
Okay. Seeing some results here. So about 14 of 78 have worked with digital twins or AI models. Some have, but not enough. Very few have worked with digital twins or AI models in a pharma environment. And you're right, Vitaliy, most people have not done anything with this yet. So very good to know. And not surprising. I mean, that's something we'll talk about today is that it- a lot of the barriers are from a regulatory standpoint, and many people don't know how to approach AI in such a regulated space. So we can hit on all these topics today. All right, so let's get into the introduction. So, digital twins. So, most of us have not worked with digital twins, and especially not in a pharma setting. So, let's get into what it would really mean. So, starting on the left, we have what's called a digital model. This would be something like you have historical data you've exported from a historian, a PI system, and you have some bioreactor parameters, and you build an AI model offline in Excel, maybe a basic regression model or something where you're actually trying to predict an outcome parameter based on the inputs. And then you want to do some scenario analysis, and you modify some parameters in the Excel, and then it gives you another output. So this is an offline analysis that's done with static data, with a model that's trained on the static data, and you can't extend that or industrialize the model. Whereas a digital shadow is where we see a lot of the industry going today, and that's at least getting your data into a unified platform or into a visualization layer so that you can actually consume your data and then be able to do potentially build on top of that data so that you can do retrospective analysis or just dig into the historical data to see if you had a deviation and you need to zoom in and see what was potentially going on. So there's really no AI in this. It's more of a reflection of your current process, and then you can use that to build digital models, but then you still have no real-time simulation or industrialization capabilities. Now, a digital twin is the highest level you can get to. You're seeing your data in real time. It's flowing to a particular it's it's a model of your process, and the data is flowing into your digital twin engine, and it's also giving you visibility into this simulations in real time. So if you wanted to change your temperature values in a live bioreactor process, if you wanted to change the ramp up of your heat up time, how would that impact your process? How would yield be impacted 3 days from now? But not only that, it gives you a lot more power. It's not just isolated to one particular process. You can extend it to multiple. So you could pioneer a process and optimize at one facility, and then you can understand how it should work at your next facility where you're going to begin your set up the same type of process. So you can actually optimize across your entire manufacturing network instead of just isolated to one particular reactor. So it provides you real-time simulations, real-time visibility across assets, and it gets to the prescriptive layer where you can actually say, okay, if I were to do this, what is my ideal outcome? And then really operationalize the AI and decision making in real time. And so at Azon, we're always thinking from through the GMP lens. So we are kind of coining the term here at Azon as a GMP twin and not a digital twin. What makes it a GMP twin would be uh, offering the possibility to have the human in the loop. We know that's a very important aspect from an AI compliance standpoint, is to have a human that can always be able to make the decision, because that's how it is today, and that's what the regulations support. And even if there's an AI model, you still want to have someone reviewing it and give the possibility to override based on their process knowledge, and the Alcoa Plus and FAIR principles as well. And all of this is something that we embody at Azon, and we incorporate this into our technology. So now, Vitaliy, could you maybe give us an overview of, when we say AI, like what kinds of things are we even talking about here? Like we have ChatGPT that was released. Like what is really going into a digital twin? Can you demystify this for us a bit?
Yes, for sure. Sorry, I just skip one slide. For sure, Kevin. Like I, I was reviewing your answers of the previous question, and I have seen that no one of you reviewed the well press on the button of yes, but just Gen AI. It's just we're just a little bit curious because well, I know that ChatGPT is super famous now. Most of the people is using it for different purposes. But well, and also like in my daily basis, I can see that the most of the people is putting ChatGPT in the same as the rest of the AI models. But at the end of the day, they are completely different. Well, in this case, we are going to talk a little bit about the pharma biomanufacturing topic, but at the end of the day, it can be applied for all of them. So we can differentiate two types of models. As you can see here, we have two columns. The left one is statistical models, or in other words, machine learning models. And in the right, we have the LLMs. It's like ChatGPT, Gemini, among others. I will not explain all the differences that we have, but just the main ones. I will say that the main ones are the data that we use to train these models, because these models need to learn from something. And like the structure of or complexity of the model. And finally, we have the output of the model. So basically, related to the data, we can see that in the, well, I will go to the next slide. Related to the data, we can see some differences. For statistical models, we use structure time series. We also can use, for example, if we are talking about pharma, yields, raw materials, data like quality data, whatever. But most of them are numerical, as you can see. In the case of the LLMs, it's unstructured text, code, general knowledge. You can feed Wikipedia inside it. Then we have the difference of the outputs. The prediction in the case of the machine learning models can be deterministic and is going to be explainable. And also, it's super transparent, this model, because at the end of the day, it's just maths, the machine learning models. So you can see the interactions that we have between different variables to put or to achieve the prediction. In the case of the LLMs, it's like a black box. Even me, like I'm doing a PhD in AI, I don't know exactly how it works, all this ChatGPT, because at the end of the day, it's super, super complex. But, and also I think most of you, if you use the ChatGPT, you can say, oh, it's providing me a lot of good answers. The predictions are super cool. But at some point, it says something stupid. And it's like, it's strange. It's because, well, at the end of the day, it's based on unstructured text, and sometimes it can like hallucinate, you know? And finally, I will say the most important thing is, well, also it's super good to validate and to audit and all this compliance stuff, is the output that, for example, in the machine learning models, if you do the same prediction, like, for example, we put the one volume, one concentration, and this fits into the model. So basically the model, if we maintain all the time the same parameters, and we run the same prediction 100 times, is going to provide us the same prediction all the time. But if we do the same to the LLM, it can be different. Maybe one day you can ask the ChatGPT, how are you? And it's going to say you, fine. But the next day, when you do the same question, it's going to say you, well, today not very good. You know, so that's the main differences that we have between the LLMs and the machine learning models. So said that, I want to put some examples related to the machine learning models, or better said, digital twins. Because the digital twins are reality. So we can find different examples in our daily basis. For example, a Roomba, it's already one digital twin. For sure, it depends on the model, but for example, what we have is a device with sensors. The device is going to take info from the environment, will send this to the cloud, run some predictions with the digital model, and select the best path, for example, to clean your house. The same we are doing in manufacturing. We are collecting data with sensors. So basically we have a bioreactor, but also you can add as much data as you want. And if you add more data, believe me, the predictions will be much better. So in this case, we can have temperature sensors, the stir speed, But if we add, for example, the output of the products, some seasonality, for example, the temperature of the water, the cost of the water, electricity, whatever, and the raw materials, the predictions that the model can do are much better. Other examples that we have, well, I'm not going to go very deep on that, but are the cars. So basically, you know that Tesla, for example, has digital twins that provide us, well, not provide, it's helping us to drive. Also, we have different examples such as bridges, planes, a lot of different examples. So as you can see, really the digital twins are a reality. So I want to make you a question, and maybe you can tell us in the chat. How could a digital twin be applied in your work? So I will be really happy to see your answers, and later on we will discuss about them. In the meanwhile, Kevin will be talking about compliance topics. So all yours, Kevin.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to see those answers. And it could be anything, you know, it could be for a particular process, it could be um, something to do with, yeah, raw materials, simulation on materials, it could be something in process, it could be something finance related even. I mean, it could be just curious to see what you all think. But let's go into the fun part, so more on the GMP aspect and compliance angle. All right. So, in order to even get to the point of a GMP twin, you need to be sure you're following all the proper, adhering to all the normal compliance standards. And something we do at Azon is we treat ourselves like a pharma company. We follow all the same types of validation protocols. We have a quality management framework, an entire integrated documentation management system, and with our product, we provide all of the relevant artifacts for you to be able to ensure you can properly validate. We have our infrastructure qualification. We have 100% audit trail on every component of our technology, data lifecycle management, and the AI and application lifecycle management as well, which is critical because if you ever do need to do a model update, you need to understand that there's certain things you just can't simply do in a pharma regulated space with AI. So you have to be sure you're adhering to all the best practices as well. So we have a lot of industry involvement. We're ISO certified, GAMP 5. We have a lot of thought leadership and with experience with the PDA, ISPE, FDA. So we're quite involved. So we're pretty uh, up to speed with what it takes to validate AI in the pharma space. And just more on the thought leadership aspect, feel free to look up Azon and digital twins and AI and compliance because our chief compliance officer and our compliance team, they're always posting different blog posts, different articles, and we do a lot of different presentations like this. So feel free to look up some of these. And actually, this is not even now, it's not the latest FDA artificial intelligence discussion paper, but this was one of the first one the first one that actually came out. So I just took an excerpt, and this is about process design and scale up and advanced process control. And when you actually just, you know, a few key terms jumped out at me that just scream digital twin. So, in process design and scale up, AI models for process development to identify optimal parameters to scale up processes, reducing development time and waste. All of these are great objective functions of a digital twin type simulation. And Vitaliy will touch on one of those is minimizing your waste or minimizing power consumption while maximizing another target. So optimize your input parameters using the digital twin methodology to ensure you're meeting these target outcomes. And so the FDA is already accepting that we know there'll be dynamic control of manufacturing systems using AI methods for predictive purposes, and they've already seen increasing adoption, and that's exactly what we're seeing at Azon as well. A lot more interest around digital twins and how to implement those in a regulated space. Another one with the Bioform, we actually just co-authored another paper about implementing AI systems in regulated pharma environments. So feel free to check that. I see some messages in the Q&A, and I think they would probably be addressed in this paper, and I think it's free to download. So feel free to check that out. But we can zoom in on one area within this, and you can see that main diagram. This is kind of like we have a cheat sheet for AI model validation, and this aligns quite well with that cheat sheet. Because it's really about aligning the data, the algorithm, the model, and the model acceptance criteria with all of the standard validation protocols. So for example, you can see at the start, you have to have the concept. You have to have what are your objectives of the model, what is the business need, and defining that problem and related to the business process. And then how are you actually managing the data? You have to maintain data integrity. So those data flows would have to be validated. So the data acquisition and data transformation, and then the algorithm. So this would need to be a qualified algorithm, and you need it to, uh, why are you choosing that algorithm for this particular uh, method to solve the business problem? So what are the requirements and specs associated with that? And then how are you integrating and deploying this model and ensuring that the predictions are what you say they should be? And as Vitaliy touched on, it can't be hallucinating and it can't be giving you random predictions. It has to be what's called deterministic. You have to be able to rely on that model and that algorithm. So given this type of training data that was used in your, whatever 800-liter bioreactor, you've used a set of data and you've chosen an algorithm. You have to be able to use that same set of data and get the same results every time. And then monitoring and ensuring the stability of the model over time. So models do degrade. So it doesn't mean that if you implement a digital twin that it's going to be perfect forever. Hopefully the digital twin has helped you improve your process so much that you actually maybe you do want to train a new set of models on your digital twin, in a few years after you've achieved such success, and maybe you want to further optimize. So models can deteriorate, and you expect them to deteriorate. So that's another thing that we know at Azon, and we've seen that often is in such high variability type processes, such as pharma manufacturing, you do have to update models and retrain and then deploy new models. So if you follow this particular kind of recipe and flow, this is your framework to be able to actually validate AI. And all of these we integrate directly into our technology so that it's clear and obvious where you need to define intended use or where you need to have model statistics about the performance of your model. So all of those are we build into our platform. All right, and so from an Azon through the Azon lens, this is how we look at things. We have our process context and data sources incoming on the left side. So this could be bioreactor parameters. It could be manual operations, so operator input, CQAs, material attributes, and it could be your utilities data. We have seen frequently that the temperature of water incoming, for example, may be impacting the process, and you need to install a heat exchanger. So all the different types of data on the left, different context, but you need an ability to bring all of that data together and contextualize it and bring your QMS data in with your LIMS data and match that with your batch record data. And you need to do that in a compliant way so that you can actually validate the data integrity and those data flows. Once you have that firm contextual foundation, then you can rapidly deploy these digital twins for predictive monitoring, prescriptive monitoring, ensure your batch quality, and ensure your process is in control. And the idea is you don't want just a digital twin to take forever to implement and start getting you insights. You want to be able to have a scalable framework within a compliance setting. And that's kind of our vision, and that's how we operate, is trying to build scalability into the application. So, and that's it from a regulatory standpoint. So now how do we actually get there? So here, how can we actually get to the point where we're being able to implement a digital twin? Well, there's a big, we have old Da Vinci on the right side here, living on paper in this laboratory setting. We like this image because this is kind of the reality of pharma today. We have all these advanced systems, and we're over here talking about AI discussion papers, and then 90% of the customers we work with have paper batch records. So ultimately, something's got to be digitized to be a part of a digital twin. So step one is we have to find a way to get off paper as quickly as possible in a compliant way without significantly disrupting our operations. Um, so, for example, we have our intelligent batch record system, which is a very lightweight EBR, not trying to be a full-blown MES that takes years to deploy, but it's something that can quickly get you off paper and at least start getting the data digitized for at least your first process, so that then you can start to optimize and achieve the ROI that can then pay for you to scale out an intelligent batch record system across your entire network. Um, so just wanted to mention that the technology is a key enabler here. And it's not only important to get, just off paper and into digital. Once you're in digital, then your data is an asset and you can really start to use it. So just speaking from a technology standpoint, it's important to choose technology that actually does have connectivity to this digitized data. So actually contextualize the data into a contextualized data lakehouse. And then from that contextual foundation, you can deploy digital twin one for your first reactor. Then you scale that out to maybe you have 11 additional reactors in parallel. Scale it out to those. You detect some areas for optimization. You improve, and then you actually want to scale that out to another site and another network. So just from an AZOM perspective, we have a SaaS application so that you can quickly deploy to different sites in your network, different lines in a very rapid, scalable manner. And so how we think of the continuum here is from old school manufacturing all the way through intelligent GxP manufacturing. And we're very keen on time to value and getting off paper and studying your process and applying AI to your process as quickly as possible. So our mission, we've done projects with for converting 4 MBRs at 2 different sites in just a matter of a few weeks and having that live on the production floor. So we're rapidly deploying these paperless batch records. But what I'm most excited about is everything on the right, is the ability to then leverage that data as an asset and actually build these intelligent digital twins to further optimize processes.
I have a question for you, Kevin, related to the previous slide. Can we skip some of these steps, do you think, in order to build faster the digital twin? For example, like, can we go to the end, right to the end?
Very good point. We've seen that before on with different customers and different projects, is we can kind of meet you where you are in your digital journey, because maybe you actually have such an important process that you already have that data converted into Excel, and maybe you have a PI system with your critical process parameters. So here's one use case. We could connect to that PI system to receive those tags in real time. And that could be one data source. And then we use an Excel file to contextualize the batch phase data and incorporate some CQAs. Or maybe we also connect to a LIMS system and a historian system and start there. And then when an EBR is implemented, we further contextualize the data with that. So there's always possibilities. As long as something is digital, there a feasibility assessment can be performed at least.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Kevin. Well, I have been reviewing all your answers on the chat. Thank you all for your answers. And there are some interesting things, especially I have seen some repeated or some familiar names, Kevin. CPV appears here. Also appears tech transfer, which is another topic that we are going to talk later, both of them. And also, like, yeah, some of you have good points, like visual inspection. I think is something useful that can be done. A lot of QC and different controls, yield optimization, increase the efficiency, among others. Detect anomalies or deviations. So basically, there are a lot of good points.
Hmm. Yeah, indeed. Um, Yeah, I'm also seeing one about establishing process parameters and CQA ranges and then allowing the model to raise OOS and OOT scenarios and share with the QA department. So this is a common use case for us. So we'll often incorporate build models that flag these and send alerts to the relevant profiles is what we would call it. And for each profile, we define like roles and permissions. So you could have a QA profile, and for anything that goes out of spec, you would send an alert to them. But not only that, I think it's important to have the digital twins to optimize a particular process, but then point you to the right data sources when you do have that OOS or OOT, so that when you do an investigation, you don't go to your LIMS system and download something and then your Pi system and then you go to the paper. You can have kind of like a batch cockpit where you pull everything into one location. So I think it's also important to choose technology that can unify and contextualize into one place, so
Mhm.
that when a model does trigger an OOS, you know exactly where to go and it guides you to the appropriate location in the solution.
Yeah, very good point. I think the most important part of the digital twins, or well, the AI models in general, is the data. So we need to put all together, pre-process everything, remove outliers. So there is a lot of work behind just to get started with the AI models.
Hmm.
At the end, it's going to be super useful because, as you are saying, you have everything together, perfectly structured, and the model is going to be able to point you when you where you need, and yeah, accelerate the root cause analysis in this case.
Hmm. And we often find that some of our customers are very keen on implementing just standard mechanistic models to understand like kind of the theoretical max, like how should my bioreactor be performing? So we can certainly industrialize those model types, but what we found is what's practical is building an AI machine learning model on historical data that you actually have to understand the true variability. Because in practice, in reality, the data is always messy and there's things, sensors have error and probes drift and need to be recalibrated. And there's so many such profound multivariate conditions ongoing that using the historical data as your basis for your digital twin is usually our recommended approach, and have had quite a bit of success using that approach.
Okay, so maybe we can jump into real world case studies. What I think about it, Kevin.
That's a great idea.
Okay, so I will take the lead now. Before we start, I want to show you different examples of the potential of the digital twins. And after that, I will also show you a real case example that we did for one of our customers. So maybe, well, the way I like to structure it, it's divide the things that the digital twin can do in 3 blocks. One is the deeper analytics, accurate forecasting, and automated control. So as you can see, some of these things you already said it in the chat, which is quite good. It looks like you're understanding pretty good the goal of the digital twins. So it's less deviations. In the case of the analytics, it's less deviations, as Kevin said, a stronger and quicker root cause analysis. And also, this model provides us some context and provides us information to understand better our process. Because, well, at the end of the day, we are in a biological environment. Nothing is linear. So, well, there are things that are linear, but it can be logarithmic, exponential. It can be linear at the beginning, but once the environment grows, it's going to be exponential. So there are a lot of variables that are affecting at the same time this process, or well, the digital twin, and it can help us to understand better what's going on inside it. After that, we have the accurate forecasting. It's more like supply chain, improve the scheduling, detect anomalies. It's something that you said in the chat. And finally, we have the automated control. And I would say that it's one of the best things that can do the digital twin, because at the end of the day, you can put the effort of one man that is managing a bioreactor, for example, to do other thing, and it's going to be completely automated. And also the digital twin will account for different things, like increase the yield, reduce the cycle time, make it more efficient to waste less material or use less electricity. So there are a lot of potential inside these digital twins. So set all the examples that we have or we can do with the digital twins. I want to explain you or share with you one story that we had in ASON. So basically, I will try to make it simple and compact a lot, because at the end of the day, this was like 1 year of work, or I don't remember how much. Well, basically, there was one company that was dividing the process in 3 bioreactors, okay? And in the first bioreactor, there were doing some I don't remember if filtration or something like that, and the output of this bioreactor goes into the second bioreactor, okay? So based on how much material we put there was a guy guessing how much solvent we need to add of another product inside this bioreactor. And there are like upper and lower limit, like it can be between 4,500 and 5,000 liters. So here we have different set points, so we can do different predictions in this case. Also, this guy has been doing it for 15 years, so he has some experience, and the accuracy that he was achieving was 70%. So every time he fails, they need to reprocess this batch, and that adds 1 day to the cycle time. So basically, here we are losing time, and also we need to add more material. And at the end of the day, it's going to be more money and less time. So what we did, they shared with us all the data, and as Kevin mentioned before, the idea is to put all the data together. So we have time series, we have CPPs, we have also the outputs, we have information about different samples that they are taking. And also, and this was super key for this digital twin, we have information of the previous batches, because we started to train this model, and we found that this model predicts very good when he has the concentration of the output of this first bioreactor. He has the volume of this. Also, he has the concentration of the raw materials. of the solvent that we put inside, but also something super interesting, it needs to account for the material that we are leaving from the previous batch in the second bioreactor. So that was super key. Once we trained the model, we did some testing and different things, and finally we applied it. And I will show you the results later. But basically, from 70% of accuracy, we went to 90% of accuracy, right first time. So apart of that, there are other benefits which I want to touch here. So here we have a graph showing us the evolution of the performance of this process. In order to consider that the batch is okay, is when the, well, sorry, I will explain a little bit. In y-axis, we have the concentration, and in the x-axis, we have the batch number. So basically, this is the very first batch of the year, and this is the very last, the last batch of the year, okay? And finally, we have some dates that we highlighted, okay? The line represents the batches, okay? So we need to be all the time within this range, inside this red area. If the batch falls outside this range, we need to reprocess the batch. That's the first goal, be inside this, but also reduce the variability. So the line needs to be flat, okay? So as you can see, this is the time before ASON. They have a lot of variability and also huge jumps. Like for example, here we went to 25% of concentration, here to 23.5. And finally, a lot of batches are outside of this range. So basically, in this time, we were building the model, the AI digital twin. And in this period of time, we started to validate it, but offline, just to make sure that the model is working. And we noticed that when the model, when the batch was failing outside, the model was predicting other volume. And just applying some logic, it was making a lot of sense. So that's why at this point, we decided to deploy the model. And basically, all the data was, it was real time. All the data was fed in the model, and then the model was doing some predictions and returning the prediction to the company. And this company was charging this volume. So as you can see, now the batches are more or less, or most of the times, inside this range. But for sure, not always at the first time we can build the perfect model. So that's why we started to keep working. And here we deployed the second version of the model. So basically we learn more about the variability and different things. And we applied the second version. And as you can see, now the variability is super small. Compared to the rest, well, compared to the first area or first period of time, the difference is huge. But even comparing it to the second period, it's a very big difference. And now no batch is outside of this range. Well, also here we have some more information. This is more oriented to the variability. As you can see, pre-ASON campaign, they have a bigger standard deviation, and also this line, like the more movement we have here, the more the variability between the batches. But when we look to the campaign with ASON, we can see low variability. Even having this red window where they had some problems, some equipment issues, but still, when they fixed this problem, we noticed that the variability was super low.
That's a really important point, Vitaliy, because often when we approach projects, like we're very value-based here at Azon, so solving problems. And in this case, we needed to optimize right first time. We did not go into the project saying, let's be able to forecast material consumption with a greater degree of accuracy. But in the end, that was another benefit, is they can much more likely predict material flows and have better planning as well. So that was a great secondary benefit that they highlighted to us, and it clearly is shown here in the data. So there's often these kind of secondary and tertiary benefits that you achieve when deploying, deploying an AI-based strategy.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not, well, here we are saying a lot about we increase the accuracy of the predictions. Also, we reduce the variability. But finally, they can put effort, like the human effort, in other things. So basically, this guy now can take care of different bioreactors. So he doesn't need to go to the plant, do the calculation, put the material, and validate it. So basically, now it's on the model. So it's like we have a lot of benefits at the end of the day here.
Mm.
And also, well, I really like this slide, and also I think it's going to answer some of the questions that we have in the chat. Because you were saying about the model drift and if the model can predict wrong or whatever. So basically, we usually deploy different dashboards in order to track the model. I will explain them more or less. So, well, this is one just to track if the variability is good or not, and if we are within the range or not. This one is in order to see if the prediction is really being followed. So basically, we can predict 5,000 liters, but if they charge 4,800, they are not really following the prediction. So it's something that we need to keep tracking because, well, maybe it is because of the equipment that is not calibrated or whatever, but the model is predicting that, but it's not being applied. And we can think that the model is going wrong, but at the end of the day, it's going well. It's the problem of other equipment. Having the digital twin, the good thing or other benefits that we have is that we can kind of learn from the model in offline data. So basically here we have a dashboard where you can put different values. So for example, you can copy one batch that was bad, okay? And you say, okay, I put these liters because the concentration, the previous material left in the bioreactor was that, and blah, blah, blah. I decided to put this volume and the batch failed. But what happens if I put less, for example? So you can run this simulation and say, okay, so then that's how it works, you know? So basically it's teaching you how interact the volume with the different parameters. And finally, we have the data drift. So basically, the thing that, and that here comes again the point of the data. The more data you provide to the model, the better. Because the model learn and he has some assumptions. For example, we are using this equipment. We are in this area, so basically the room temperature is usually that. And there are many other examples, but also I'm trained in this range of volume. So basically it must be like the first bioreactor provides us a certain volume. And the minimum can be, for example, 3,000 and maximum 4,000. But what happens if we start to put more volume and the model doesn't learn about this new volume? So here the model will start to drift. It's what we call. And at this point is when we need to retrain the model because he needs more information, more context for that. So as you can see, it's not just deploy a model and that's it. There are a lot of controls behind that. There are a lot of compliance checks which we need to match in order to make it work. So said that, this is all about the real example. And now we are going to introduce you to the research. Because in ASON, we are not only focused on manufacturing, we are also doing some research. So that's why I was saying before that it's funny that you mentioned CPV, because we did the CPV of the future. Also, we published some papers. There are links in the presentation, and yeah, probably after that maybe we can send you the link. just in case you want to check and read all these papers. So I will keep it simple, but the idea here is that, well, in the right side, we have the biggest pastori cycle to produce one type of protein, okay? And as I mentioned it many times, it's not linear. So as you can see, it's super complex, and understand this and predict how it's going to grow the cell and how much material it's going to produce, it's crazy, no? So what we did a collaboration with different parties. As you can see, they are listed at the bottom, in order to do this experiment. The experiment was collect data of a small bioreactor, okay, doing some fermentations with Pichia pastori, and then see if we can create a digital twin of this bioreactor, and if this digital twin can totally automatically produce successful batches. And well, we did it. that's the spoiler. And then what we did is compare if we can do it better than the operator that was doing it. So basically, there was one guy in front of the bioreactor 8 hours in a row, looking at the bioreactor and adjusting the steering speed in order to achieve a good batch with high yields. And he wasn't able to beat the digital twin. So I want to put this video. It's about the CPP of the future, and I will explain a little bit more about it. So basically, at the bottom, you have a camera of the bioreactor running the fermentation. So basically, how it works is the sensors are collecting different information about this bioreactor. For example, the temperature, the steering speed, how it's growing the cells, the pH, a lot of information, okay? This information goes into our cloud system, or our platform, where it's preprocessed, structured, and sent to the model, to the digital twin. This digital twin triggers some predictions, and it was every 5 seconds, okay? It was adjusting the speed every 5 seconds. So was triggering some predictions and sending it back to the bioreactor. So once it's sent back, this speed was adjusted, because, well, there are previous work of analyzing what is key for this specific fermentation. It's not just do the do the model. You need to do a lot of different things before that, but this is the result. And it was a really, really good experiment. And yeah, at the end, we published different papers on that. So what do we achieve with this CPV of the future? So basically, we follow the golden batch profile. You know, we increase the yield, even compared to an expert who was for 8 hours in a row reviewing the batch. Also, we can extract other different, well, we can do of other different applications, like generation knowledge, because at the end, you can see that this guy knows a lot about the process, but he learned even more, because, well, also it was a specific process. It was in epoxy environment, so it's a little bit more difficult, but still. You can optimize the yield. You can anticipate production issues. So, for example, if the cells start to die, the pH is going to be different. So it can be detected in real time. But how you are going to detect it by eye? You can, well, and the most interesting one, the bioreactor can work 24/7, and no one needs to review it, because it's going to be everything automatic. So yeah, at the end, we have a lot of technologies here which we need to use because IoT is evolving, AI is evolving, and we can see that there are different approaches that we can apply in this field. So said that, well, we are done with the CPV topic, but the research on ISON don't end here, and here is where I started my PhD with the company. Basically, we want to challenge the manufacturing and solve different problems with digital twins. One of them, and I already mentioned before, is the tech transfer. It's a big problem in the industry, and we want to see if we can solve it with the digital twins. And the other one is the scale up. It's also something difficult to do in some of the processes, and we want to study it. So here is when appears the bioscape. It's a digital twin driven by biofermentation scale up. Okay, there are different parties participating here, like PDA, ASON, of course, Universitat Rovira i Virgili, Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, and University College of London. So the objective here is create a digital twin in order to accelerate the scale up and the tech transfer in the biotechnological process. So, once you start this type of projects, the first you need is define the problems that you have, no? Because we need to define what we are going to do and what we are going to solve. So the scale up, it's nowadays it's a process that relies a lot on manual operations. It requires very experienced people because there are super specific processes, and you need to have the right guy in the plant in order to help you with the scale up. And finally, there is a clear gap of or lack of standardization methods. That's true that there are different techniques in order to scale up, but believe me, I'm not 100% sure if you are going to find the proper scale up technique at the first time. And finally, we have the tech transfer. So, the idea is to go from one city, for example, Barcelona, to another one, London. But as you know, there are a lot of factors that can affect this tech transfer. It can be the weather, it can be the equipment, the people. So the idea is try to collect all this information and put it inside the digital twin and see if it can, in real time, adjust the batch in order to achieve the success of the batch. So finally, we have the overview about this topic, the bioscape. So basically, the idea is to improve even more the CPV of the future, or the digital twin that we created before, and challenge the scale up and the tech transfer. Because believe me, I have been reading a lot about the digital twins, and especially in the scale up topic. And all the people is saying that yes, this is the future. We need new techniques in order to scale up. There are a lot of reviews. If you Google it in Google Scholar, for example, you are going to find a lot of papers reviewing different approaches and saying, okay, AI is the answer. But then there are people that does experiments in historical data. It's a good approach, but it's not real, So it can be the bridge to do it in the real life, let's say, because our idea now is generate a lot of data with different bioreactors with different sizes, but still small sizes, in order to feed it in order to do the analysis, define what are the key parameters, and create the digital twin. But once this digital twin is created, we want to do a real scale up. So it's not going to be in historical data that you just validate the model, which is it's a good approach, as I said, but it's going to be the bridge in order to do the scale up. So said that, I hope in the future you will hear more about this topic, or you will read more papers about it. But for now, this is the state of the project. It just started, and yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Said that, maybe we can go to the Q&A. I don't know if you have something to add, Kevin.
Yeah, well, there's a few themes that I've picked up on from the chats is, from a validation standpoint. These types of models, what we typically do, since they're ML based machine learning models based off the historical data, so we're studying that historical variability and how you can implement these digital twins in a regulated space like this is not going, you have to still adhere to the same stipulations. So you have operating ranges in your recipe. Well, those still apply. So if you were to have, for example, the first use case that Vitaliy described, that was providing an output to the operator, but based on historical variability. And we know we have to recommend something between 4,500 liters and 5,000 liters. So the model will never give anything outside that range. And then going back to the GMP principles, we give the operator the ability, the human is in the loop. The operator is actually in the loop to decide to actually take that action. So there's different ways of putting it, but we will be within, from the Azon perspective, within the operating ranges. We would not have a digital twin recommending you to go to, 500, add an additional 500 liters. That would be a deviation in your process. Um,
Yeah, for sure. You can tune the digital twin as much as you want. As you said, you can put the limits for sure. It's just like a double check. And for sure, maybe you can, well, at the end, you can, for example, as I said in in the example of the 90% of accuracy, uh, I remember that, well, because I have been working on that project, that's why I have this info. Basically, for example, if the prediction returns you some probability, and the probability was saying, okay, you have, for example, 75% of possibility of achieving this concentration. So basically, if the probability is quite low, you can say, okay, I don't want this prediction. I will go with the default prediction. And we design it a default prediction based on some analytics. So you can add extra layers to the digital twin just to be more confident and just to say, okay, if something goes wrong, we have this backup. Say.
So I want to make sure that you see also the questions in the Q&A. So we have quite a few, so I'm not sure if you addressed all of them. So we have 9 pending questions in the Q&A section.
all right, let's start going through. Um, so I see one from Ari. What would be a reason for the deterioration of a deterministic model? Very good question. So this would be a situation where the nature of the input data is starting to change, or maybe there was a fundamental change in a in a raw material. We often see that in biopharma. So let's say you have models built with and the basis of the models is maybe it's somewhere in the middle of your process, phase three of your process, but you have a set of materials. Now you've built models on that original set, but the raw materials are not in your model. But now you get a brand new batch. And then when you run that data through your model, it gives you a prediction that just doesn't make sense. And it could be because those raw materials are then impacting the input parameters in your deterministic model. So it's almost like the design space when you were training the model, it's now seeing kind of a data with different characteristics because of another parameter that impacted the parameters in your model. So that's an example of how it can change. We see that with batch sizes. So for example, one biopharma process they want to just be able to produce more. They're expanding, they're spinning up new facilities, but they've changed their batch size to be higher. But what we see is that does have it's a statistically significant impact on batch yield, but overall product being produced is going up. So when we did that model, because of the batch size, we needed to retune that model as well. because it just fundamentally impacted the other parameters due to the increase in volume. So with highly complex processes, there's always something that could be impacting the parameters within your model.
Okay. I see some questions from Mario. You say, given that drug substances and product manufacturing often occur at different sites and supply chain are increasingly complex, how can digital twins effectively integrate data across these distributed operations? Well, here we need to differentiate. Well, at the end, um, the creation of the digital twin, it's super long and complex. It's well, most of the effort is on the data. Okay, so first of all, you need to prepare the data, but the model is going to be a part. So there are different scripts that basically we build that are going to integrate all this data in a proper structure in order to be everything aligned. Okay, so for example, if you have different sites, well, also we do it a lot with the platform. I think Kevin explained the different topics about it. We can have different sites, and the idea is to structure it. So basically, once we record this information, it's going to be everything automatic. It's going to be well, not a bottleneck. It's well, it's going to be collected everything in the platform, structured with these pre-processing scripts, and then it goes inside the digital twin. It's not the digital twin is pre-processing the data. This is outside. For sure, all that can be validated. I don't really, I'm not really an expert in the compliance topic, so I don't know if you have different thoughts on that, Kevin, regarding the validation of the pre-processing scripts.
Sorry, I'm not sure which question that is. Um,
No, I mean, so I was explaining that when we put all the data together from different sites, it's not on the AI digital twin, it's on the pre-processing scripts.
Yep. Yeah. So that's the important part is it's really breaking down where the key inflection points are, like where the data enters and what is the source of that data. And then is the source validated? And then validating that the data integrity, so the data flows, and then validation of the AI model itself. So it all goes back to that, the intended use, and then mapping that back to the different artifacts of how the data got there, how the data was processed, and then how it's being used. Um, and let's see, another one. How can we build digital twins systematically? Maybe going back to the first practical use case that Vitaliy described, we didn't know that that's where we would be implementing a digital twin. The problem was they said, hey, it was the first part of the graph. It was, hey, we got a lot of variability and we need to get right first time much higher. And we don't know what happened. Like, we don't know why this is happening. Why is the operator no longer able to properly predict? And it was because a lot of coincidental systematic variance. But so what Vitaliy and team did is they looked at the process holistically. So at Azon, we always use the word holistic because we go from raw materials all the way through the end. And we want to identify the key bottleneck area and then and is there a feasible solution to implement? Like what do we actually need to do? And when we got to this point of the process, Vitaliy discovered that, hey, there's an opportunity for optimization here. So holistic, then we drilled in, and then we brought in the relevant personnel. So we reviewed with the subject matter experts and then got the input from the operator to understand how does he make this decision. And then it came to light clearly, well, now we know there's a decision being made, and he's using data inputs that are just visual inspection from prior batches in his brain, and that is a bottleneck. So then we said, hey, we proposed an AI-driven digital twin to resolve that problem. So A lot of times it varies quite a bit. Another example is a company approached and they needed a digital twin on a distillation column. And they have one manual piece, and it's a valve opening. So when is the optimal time to perform this manual operation? Well, that was a very clear use case. They came from the beginning knowing the operation that needed the digital twin applied. So I know that was a long-winded way of saying the answer, it depends, but we do approach it in a systematic way from a consulting standpoint. And it's not always clear that a digital twin is the answer when we approach a customer problem. All right.
There are different topics. For example, Mario is saying again, in many GMP environments, legacy data and metadata often prove incomplete or not fit for purpose when developing a digital twin. What would be your advice in such cases? Should we invest in cleaning and contextualizing existing data, start over with new data collection, or even consider the controlled use of synthetic artificial data to bridge gaps? Well, when we are talking about pharma industry, I don't think synthetic data is the answer. I would say that's true that it can help, but I will avoid that. But for sure, like as much data we can collect, well, the more data we have, the better for the model. Basically, this is the main message here. For sure, it's good to invest in order to clean the data and contextualize it properly, the existing data, but also the digitalization of the data is super good. For example, the product that presented Kevin of the AVR is super useful to digitalize the data in real time, and also that help us to build real digital twins. Because if you have only the data, you can build the digital model, but without with this connection between the real object and the digital object, if there is no connection, you only have the digital shadow or the digital model, but not the digital twin.
And
Yeah, I would say that we need all of them. Use the data that we have, clean. It maybe invest in different, well, in the digitalization of the new data, and finally build the model. That's the thing.
I do want to add one point to that, Vitaliy. And so, Mario, it also depends, I would say, the cost of your problem, because it may make sense to digitize data and put in the effort. We have seen that as well, where we just have to put in the effort to, if there's a big enough problem where we got to digitize batch record data, certificate of analysis data. So sometimes it's a cost benefit analysis as well. Like maybe we do need to work on some historical contextualization, even though it's going to take us, a couple weeks, it may provide tons of ROI. So it's another consideration. Um, so another question about, does the system generate like a root cause, and does it generate a eureka moment? So very good question. It's once again, a lot of times I say it depends. So sometimes we found, like recently we found, and a couple of times we found that we see a lot of, like with the one use case again that Vitaliy presented, like why all of a sudden after like 15 years did they have their worst right first time? Well, there you see sometimes there's not a silver bullet, and you have uh, it's not just one clear cause. It's not like the chromatography beads or something have very poor specs all of a sudden, and you're limited to one supplier. So uh, sometimes you do have to update models, account for variability, and you just see that, hey, these things were systematically varying together, We're not sure why, but a lot of CQA started drifting simultaneously. And we know the implications on our process. We're not trying to explain why the materials are doing this, but we know how to correct process parameters to account for that injected variability. So sometimes it can be that you're adapting versus truly finding the root cause. You know, hey, the test results are starting to all drift systematically. Now, someone needs to get to the bottom of that, but we can tighten up our specs potentially and optimize our process parameters. Um, but in other cases, it is clear and obvious of the system will output, you know, like, hey, these parameters are most significant and it's very clear in the SMEs and, you know, from a chemistry standpoint, everything aligns. So we've seen kind of the whole gamut of potential outcomes there. Um, Another one, for example, Vitalia, a question about, you know, if it's probabilistic results, how would we handle that? Well, once again, it's all about defining how are you using the output within your business context. So often with a probability model, a decision has to occur. So if you're saying we're predicting a deviation with and you get a probabilistic model, if the outcome's greater than 50%, you assume the outcome is going to occur. However, you can also implement save like checks in the model and you can set your own threshold. Sometimes a model you would say, I am very confident in the model when it gives me an output of 75% or more. And then maybe that's the threshold you want to choose. So then you need to provide the justification for that as well. So sometimes it is just putting the human in the loop, evaluating the historical model performance, and making the determination that, hey, 75% is my cutoff. When 75% or greater is achieved, it says I have a high probability of a deviation. And if that occurs, then the model may be prescriptive and say, oh, now we need to adjust our agitation speed and lower the agitation speed such that we've reduced the likelihood of that deviation occurring. So that's one way we deal with the probabilistic approach.
Yeah, at the end, we are checking all the time this model. Like every time it fails or start to going like as we like um, start to predict different things that we are not expecting. We review the model and maybe, for example, we can add more information or we can put weights on the inputs. For example, we can say, okay, this variable is important, but not that important. You know, it's just trust it half of the time. Well, not half of the times, but just um, take more into account the different variables, and this one just in like more secondary. You know, so you can tune a lot this type of models. For sure, like it needs iterations, and every time you iterate over it, it's going to be better and better. So that's why it's super important to keep tracking the accuracy, the performance of all that, and keep improving it.
Let's see any more. Anything else we haven't hit on? Yeah, I think some important points like you can really like there's no reason not to start immediately like identifying where's my evaluating your current state and taking an inventory of the available data you have. What is the low-hanging fruit? What data is available? What can easily be ported to another system to be contextualized, unified, and then, you know, applying intelligence to that data. So definitely just starting to do that holistic analysis of your data inventory to see where you can potentially apply AI. Because sometimes you have to be honest with yourself, take a step back, and it might be that you have to work on your data foundation quite a bit before you can jump into deploying AI. But we will be, hopefully, I know we're all in the same industry, so if any of you are at CPHI in Frankfurt this year, feel free to stop by and say hello. We'd love to talk to you more.
Excellent. Thank you very much for this presentation. Vitaliy and Kevin was very enlightening. So I do hope that our audience enjoyed this talk and learned quite a bit of it. So feel free also to share some of your thoughts in the chat. I hope you had a good time and we managed to answer most of your questions. I'm sure that Vitaliy and Kevin would be happy to connect with you. And if you have further questions, feel free to email them as well. And yeah, of course, if you're at the CPHI, make sure to visit them. And we still have very interesting webinars in front of us with Azon planned. So you could also use this opportunity this minute to maybe write some ideas in the chat for topics that you would like to see more around AI. So I could give you maybe 30 more seconds. So we have a few more minutes of the session. So I want to make sure that we use this time. So maybe you can type some ideas or some topics that you would be interested to learn more, whether you would like to go maybe deeper into AI, or maybe you would like to hear about more general topics, maybe entry topics as well. So yeah, so I already see some information comes from validation topics, right, around AI, maybe processes, how to create the SOPs and around it. So this is Christopher, that's a very good idea, process validation topics, right? Yeah, so those are quite good things. If you have any more ideas, that would be good, but you can also send us those ideas also per email. Good. So on this note, then I would like again to thank Kevin, Vitaliy for this very good presentation, for Azon for partnering with us for another great webinar, and to our audience. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at our next events as well. So have a good evening, good day, good morning, depending where you're joining us, and we'll see you the next one.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you. See you.